What's up, awesome YouTubers? Rhine1988 or Justin back here to do a video for you all. I hope you're all doing well, and this is episode 3 of my new series, Rhine1988's Top Horror. And what that is every weekend, every Sunday, which has been a pattern right now, I'm going to release a new episode surrounding anything within the horror movie genre, from movies, physical media, nostalgic stuff, just horror movie related topics. And so I hope you guys are enjoying this series so far. I'm going to come up with a lot of creative top 10s surrounding the horror movie genre, the favorite genre of mine, my favorite movie genre, a genre that I have a huge passion for. It's a genre that I grew up with, and I just remember watching, a lot of sci-fi channel movies, which were like always the best ones, like Halloween being on sci-fi, or any Carpenter movie, any Wes Craven film, any type of B movie that was on sci-fi I watched. I remember watching Return of the Living Dead on sci-fi. AMC was also a huge influence with me. A lot of the October Fright Night Scream Fest movies that they would play on AMC throughout October, and USA Up All Night and Joe Bob Briggs. All of that stuff I grew up with, and I love this genre. I have a huge passion for it. I've said it already, Halloween is a film that made me fall in love with movies. John Carpenter's Halloween. And speaking of which, this week's episode is going to be about John Carpenter and me ranking my top 10 favorite John Carpenter films from number 10 to number 1, which I think a lot of people already know what my favorite Carpenter movie is, but if this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, you will be surprised with that. And then I'm also going to do some honorable mentions. And this list was really tough because for me, Carpenter is a director, not a film, a director where I actually really enjoy or love his movies. There's not a film that I dislike from John Carpenter. Even his weakest movie, which is probably Ghost of Mars, I enjoyed the film. I find enjoyment with that movie, even though it's not one of his best, and I'm not going to mention it in my top 10 or honorable mentions. I do enjoy that. And then you have a movie like Someone's Watching Me, which again, I'm not going to talk about too much in this video, but that's just something I want to mention real quick. I love that TV movie. I think it's a great TV movie, and it's a great Carpenter movie. So, a lot of great atmosphere in that, great direction from Carpenter, and for a TV movie, that's a really awesome one. Things that really stick out with John Carpenter, and the reason why I love him so much, is I love the atmosphere in his movies. Pretty much any movie that he's directed has great atmosphere, but also great music. And that's a thing that really stands out with his films and has a lot of character, in my opinion. I think the music in his movies has a lot of character, that is a character in the movies, and I love the music. So Carpenter is my favorite director of all time. He's my favorite horror movie director. I'll always love his work. I hope we get more movies from him, but I love the fact that he's involved with these new Halloween movies, producing music for the films, and I got to see him in concert, and that was pretty amazing as well. So, but let's get started, guys, on my top 10 favorite John Carpenter films, and we're gonna start with some honorable mentions. And this list was really tough to make, again, because there's not a film I dislike with Carpenter. And I had to do a last minute change because I forgot a movie. So I have 4 honorable mentions, and the honorable mentions are all films that I either love or really enjoy. So I want to talk about them, and then we'll get into my top 10. So the first honorable mention is Village of the Damned. I feel like this movie is just underrated, underappreciated. A lot of Carpenter's films from the 90s don't really get too much love or a lot of talk. But Village of the Damned, it is a remake of an original film, but I have always loved this movie. This is nostalgic for me because I remember the first time watching it, renting it from a mom and pop video store, and just having a great time with it. And it's still a film I love today. Has some great Carpenter music in it, has that great Carpenter atmosphere, a great cast. Village of the Damned. If you've never seen this one, or if it's been a long time since you've seen it, give that one a watch. Check it out. I love that movie. The last Carpenter film that he directed in 2010, The Ward. So originally, a long time ago, this was in my top 10. But, over the years, I rewatched some Carpenter films that I love more. But I actually love this movie. I know this movie doesn't get talk. And if it gets talk, people think it's, just okay, or a film that, they don't really care for. It's rare when I hear people actually say that they love the film or really enjoy this movie. Even though he did not compose the movie's music, and it doesn't have, that complete John Carpenter atmosphere that I talked about already, I still love this film for what it is, and I think it's great. And again, I wish we would get another Carpenter movie. Maybe we will, but if this is his last movie, I'm really happy with it. So, The Ward, John Carpenter's The Ward. Another 90s Carpenter movie that, when I think of blockbuster days, this is one that I always think about, and that is Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires from 1998, I believe. I remember watching this movie, renting it from Blockbuster when it first came out on the good old VHS days, and loving the movie. Pretty terrifying, and still is terrifying today. It's got some really good suspense. It has a really good villain of a character in this movie. One of the best vampire villains out there in movies, and one of the best vampires in movies, period. So, but I love this Carpenter movie. It's 90s fun. It's got some, again, intense moments. The first act, pretty much the opening, leading up to the motel scene, which a lot of people know about if you've seen this. It's pretty gruesome. It's an awesome scene. I love this Carpenter movie. I think it's pretty underrated. Again, a lot of 90s Carpenter films, John Carpenter films, don't really get a lot of talk and a lot of love, but I really love this movie. So I had to mention that one. And the last honorable mention, this might be kind of like a surprise for people, because I know a lot more people love this film. I've always really enjoyed it. It's never been a Carpenter film that I've always been fully attached to. But that is Escape from New York. So, obviously I have the Scream Factory release, so I do really enjoy this movie. Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell, he is great in this film. You got a great cast all around. It has the Carpenter music, which I really love the music in this, and it has a great atmosphere. But out of a lot of Carpenter stuff, this is one that I don't go back to and revisit too much, so maybe in the future, like with a lot of the ones I'm going to talk about when I get to my initial top 10, this will be a film in the future that might hit that top 10 in the, again, near future. But right now, I still really enjoy this John Carpenter film. It's just not one that, again, I'm attached to like a lot of the other Carpenter films that I'm going to talk about. So, Escape from New York and Escape from LA, which isn't on my list. They're both great movies for what they are, and I had to mention Escape from New York at least. So those are some honorable mentions of John Carpenter films that I recommend checking out if you've never seen. So let's get into my top 10 favorite Carpenter movies. So going into my top 10 favorite John Carpenter films, I have to mention that not all these are straight up horror movies. In fact, one of them isn't a horror movie. But, when I'm talking about my top 10 favorite Carpenter films, I'm going to talk about all the films that I love from Carpenter. And actually, all these movies that I'm going to talk about are films that I love from John Carpenter. So coming in at my number 10 is Assault on Precinct 13. This is the film that got, the producers of Halloween to, say, John Carpenter is awesome, and we're going to, produce Halloween and let him direct this movie. This was before Halloween, before Someone's Watching Me. Assault on Precinct 13 is a fantastic film that I love, and I feel like doesn't get enough talk when it comes to a John Carpenter film. I know people do love it and do appreciate it, but, outside of like a lot of other Carpenter films that I'm going to mention, this is one that's kind of underrated. So if you've never seen this movie, this is, again, before Halloween. This is one to check out. You got some cast members that were in Halloween, Charles Cyphers, Nancy Loomis, or Nancy Kyes. They're both in this movie, and they would go on to be in Halloween. You could definitely tell that there's a lot of great atmosphere and direction that Carpenter would take over to Halloween. And I love Assault on Precinct 13. The music, the cast, the atmosphere, the story. This is a great John Carpenter film. Actually, an awesome John Carpenter film that you should check out and watch. And, if you've never seen it, definitely give it a watch. I absolutely love that. Coming in at number 9 is a film that almost was at my number 8 spot, but, I'm pretty sure in the future they'll go back and forth. But number 9 is Big Trouble in Little China. I love this. I love all these movies. You're going to hear me say that, but I really love this film. You got a mix of humor in here. You got a mix of comedy, some horror movie elements, some suspense elements in this. But this is just a great John Carpenter film and one of my favorite Kurt Russell movies. And might be my favorite Kurt Russell character. I don't know. There's another John Carpenter Kurt Russell movie I'm going to talk about later on. But Jack Burton, great character anyway. Again, great cast, great direction, great atmosphere, great music from Carpenter. This is a fun one. This is just a fun Carpenter movie that if you haven't seen it, or if it's been a while since you've seen it, you need to really give this one a watch. 80s fun, 80s camp. I wouldn't even really say it's too campy. It's just 80s fun. And I love this. It's directed really well. Again, great music, atmosphere, cast. Big Trouble in Little China. I love this Carpenter movie. Always will. Always have, always will. That is one of my favorites. One of the John Carpenter films that I saw later on, maybe a few years ago for the first time, that I loved right away. And it's a shame that it took me so long to watch this. And again, I feel like this is a Carpenter film that does have a fan base, but not enough people talk about it. When we think about Carpenter, we think about his horror movie, films, all his, horror movie related films, the horror movies that he's directed. And this is a film that kind of stepped outside of that genre. And again, it's not a horror movie, but it's a film that I want to talk about and want to recommend if you've never seen it. And coming in at number 8 is Starman, from 1983 or 84. You got Jeff Bridges in this, Karen Allen. This is a sci-fi love story, and it's honestly one of my favorite love stories on screen. I think the chemistry between Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen is perfect. Again, you got great Carpenter music in this. I think he composed the music for this. If not, it's great music from, John Carpenter, a John Carpenter movie. Atmosphere, direction, I really love this film. And, again, this is a film that I saw later on. When I was growing up watching Carpenter's movies, this was a film that I really didn't have too much interest in. I was really sticking with a lot of his horror movies and checking those out, and his, or comedy horror movies that he had. And Starman was never a film that I really turned to. So again, a few years ago, I finally watched it, and it's a shame that it took so long for me to see this movie, because I absolutely love this movie. This is a film, honestly, out of Carpenter's movies that I go to a lot now, because I just really love it. Again, it's a great love story, one of the best love stories on screen. Great cast, great chemistry, great Carpenter music. Again, I think he composed the music. I could be wrong, but I think he was the one that composed the music. Actually, it wasn't John Carpenter, it was another composer. But either way, it's great Carpenter. It's great music in a Carpenter film that I love. Starman, I'm going to stop rambling, but definitely check it out, guys. This is one that you need to watch. If you've never seen it, this is a Carpenter must. I love that. All these are must-watch Carpenter films, but that one right there, I absolutely love. So coming in at number 7 is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, one of my favorite Carpenter films, obviously, and this one will probably, bump up the list later on, but I love this movie, and that is Christine. This is just a great, suspenseful, Stephen King adaptation. It's a great Carpenter movie. Again, there's the Carpenter music there, the John Carpenter music that is very signature to a lot of his films. I mentioned that Carpenter's music is a character within his movies, and it's definitely a character here. Obviously Christine, the car, is a character, but you got a great cast here again. You got some great suspenseful, eerie moments. I really feel like this is not the scariest Carpenter movie, but definitely one of the most suspenseful Carpenter films that we have out here. And I love this movie. I adore this film. If it's a film that you haven't seen in a long time, definitely check it out. Keith Gordon's in this. He's the lead character of the film. You got a whole bunch of other great cast members. Kelly Preston, rest in peace. She has a small part in this. This is a go-to John Carpenter film that you should watch if you've never seen it, or again, if it's been a while since you've seen it, give this one a watch. Christine, absolutely love it. And again, it's one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. So the next one, coming in at number 6, this is, again, another 90s Carpenter film that fell under the radar when it came out, but I think more and more people are appreciating the film, seeing it, loving it, and that is In the Mouth of Madness. One of my go-to Carpenter films. I watch a lot of John Carpenter films, on a lot of replay value, but for some reason, this is a film that every year I have to watch at least once or twice a year. I don't know what it is. I think it's the music. I think it's the imagery that we have. I think it's pretty scary at times, very eerie at times. There's definitely some moments that when you first see this film that are going to be nightmarish for you. A lot of his movies are, but this one has a lot of bizarre moments. This is a H.P. Lovecraft story, so if you know H.P. Lovecraft, if you know a lot of his other adaptations, his stories are out there and they're different in a good way. But In the Mouth of Madness, this is a great Carpenter film that, again, over time, more and more people are seeing, watching, checking out. And if you've not seen it yet, like all these movies, you need to watch it. Sam Neill's in this, Julie Carmen from Fright Night Part 2. They're both great in this movie. Again, some great scares, some great suspense, some great imagery, nightmarish imagery, great music by Carpenter. I just really love this film. And over the years, when I keep watching this movie, it gets better and better in my opinion. So In the Mouth of Madness, check it out if you've never seen this. This is a great Carpenter film that you all should watch. All right, guys, so going into my top 5 favorite Carpenter movies. The next one I'm going to talk about is a film that, out of all of his films, every one of his movies, this is a film that I've grown to love and love each time I watch it. Because the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I remember people talking about the movie and really loving it. And when I first saw it, I thought it was okay. It wasn't a film that I loved right away. And it took, maybe 3 or 4 watches, honestly, for me to fully appreciate and love this movie. And I love the film now. It's in my top 5. I'm wearing the t-shirt right now, and that is John Carpenter's They Live. Again, I love all these movies, so I'm going to say that, but this is, again, a film that I think out of all of Carpenter's films that I kind of watched the first time, this is a film that I initially did not love. I thought it was okay. I thought the cast was great. Roddy Piper, rest in peace. He's great in the movie. Keith David's great. Meg Foster's great. But there was always just something about this film that I didn't love right away. I don't honestly know what it was. I think it was kind of like watching Escape from New York, when I first saw that movie, and I mentioned it already, it was a film that, people really got attached to, and I never really did. And so when I first saw this movie, it was kind of the same way. But over the years, this is a Carpenter film that I've really grown to love. I think it's a great sci-fi film. Obviously, it's a great horror movie. It's got some comedy in there. It's got some action. There's some great iconic fight scenes, especially with Roddy Piper and Keith David. Great in the movie. Great music. Great surprises if you've never seen this movie. Kind of stay away from spoilers, but if you've never seen the film and you go into this not knowing anything, it's got some great surprises and great twists throughout the film. But I love this movie. Again, it's a film that out of all of Carpenter's movies, I've really grown to love. From a film that I thought was okay the first time I saw it, to now loving it, this is a huge leap for me, because 10 years ago, this would not be in my top 10. This would be an honorable mention, because, again, when I first saw it, I thought it was okay, but it took about 4 watches for me to fully fall in love with this film, and obviously it's in my top 5 right now. And if you were like me when you first saw it, and if you've never seen it again, go back and watch it. They Live is a must, guys. It's a must own. It's a must watch. That iconic cover there, which I love. Yeah, They Live. I absolutely love that John Carpenter film. Coming in at number 4, this is a film, honestly, out of all of Carpenter's film, I find to be the scariest one. I find it to be the film, I talked about nightmarish imagery within the mouth of madness, but this one right here has a lot of the scares that a Carpenter film has. It's got some great nightmarish imagery. It's got some really good suspenseful moments. It's got an ending that when you watch the movie, it kind of ends and you're having to think about what happened when the movie ended, because it just goes to a black screen, kind of like in the middle of a scene, and then it just, the movie just ends. So it's a film that over the years, I've always enjoyed it. I've always really enjoyed it. I've always been scared of it. The first time I saw it really scared me. And I didn't really watch it too much because it really affected me in some little way. I just remember the first time seeing this movie, not being able to go to sleep for a while because there were some certain moments in the movie that terrified me, and they're still pretty terrifying when you watch it today. And again, for me, this is the scariest Carpenter movie. It has an amazing atmosphere, great cast, great music by Carpenter, and again, some terrifying moments, and that is Prince of Darkness. Guys, this is a film that when I talk about underrated Carpenter movies, I still find this one to be very underrated. People have seen it, people have enjoyed it. I've never really heard anybody say they completely hated the movie, but I don't hear a lot of people say that they love this film. I love Prince of Darkness. This is top 4 Carpenter film for me. This is, again, the scariest Carpenter film that I've ever seen. And when you finish this movie and the first time you watch it, and even after rewatches, there's some moments that really stick with you. And there's moments that stick in your head that will kind of stick with you for a long time. Maybe a day, maybe 2 days. This is an awesome Carpenter film. In my opinion, a fantastic Carpenter movie that doesn't get enough love. And, when we talk about 80s Carpenter, this is a film that you have to see. If you're a fan of, his 80s films, if you're a fan of a lot of his classic films, check this one out. You might not think it's a classic, but I really think this is a film that more people need to see, more people need to talk about. Prince of Darkness, one of his most underrated, most underappreciated films, and one I recommend you guys check out. Coming in at number 3, now my number 3 and number 2, they're always going to go back and forth. I really feel like it. But when I think of my top 3 Carpenter films, all of these movies will always be in my top 3. And coming in at number 3 is The Fog. So this is the film that he did after Halloween. And again, we talk about atmosphere. Atmosphere is one of the best things about this movie. I love the atmosphere. I love the small town feel. I love, this town living pretty much around an ocean. Hopefully that's right. Hopefully it's an ocean. It's an ocean. I'm just going to say it's an ocean. But you got this small town feel, and I love that. I love that about the movie. I love the atmosphere again, right from the very beginning of the film up to the very end. It's got some great eerie atmosphere in a Carpenter film. Awesome cast, a lot of amazing people in this. Tom Atkins, Adrienne Barbeau, Hal Holbrook, Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh, Nancy Kyes or Nancy Loomis. So many great people in this movie. So an awesome cast all around. And it just surrounds this, island that people are living on, and this, this history that no one wants to talk about. And then, so many years later, 100 years later, these ghosts come back for revenge. And I love this movie. If you've never seen John Carpenter's The Fog, you need to watch it. If you're just now getting into Carpenter's movies, watch all of these movies. But say if you started with Halloween like I did when I was younger, check this one out. This is one that you should watch right away. I love this movie. John Carpenter's The Fog never gets old for me. Awesome music, awesome atmosphere, awesome cast. I can praise this movie all day. Every day, I love the film. Check out The Fog if you've never seen it. And this 4K, by the way, is awesome. So if you can get it, definitely get it. The 4K is region free, obviously. Most 4Ks, they will play in region A 4K players. But if you just have a Blu-ray player, if you can get the Scream Factory release, that's awesome too. I actually still have that. But if you have a region-free Blu-ray player, you can definitely play the Blu-ray as well, because the Blu-ray is region locked, but the 4K you can play. So, but The Fog, check it out either way. You know, if you want to stream it first, stream it. If you want to buy it, I recommend buying it. Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, whatever you can get your hands on. Watch The Fog. Check it out, guys. It is awesome. Coming in at number 2 is The Thing. So I love this movie. This is a film that I've always loved, but I think the movie has definitely grown on me more and more over the years. And, you know, what can I say about this movie that hasn't been said before? Again, awesome cast. I think Carpenter really knows how to cast people in his movies. Kurt Russell, Keith David, so many great cast members, some really terrifying moments, and without a doubt, I think, in my opinion, the best practical effects in a Carpenter film. I love the practical effects in this movie. Some really eerie stuff in the film, some great scares. Obviously, the atmosphere is awesome, that snowy atmosphere. I love it. This is a film that bombed when it came out, and a lot of people hate it, but over the years, over the decades since its release, more and more people love it, more people appreciate it, and it's considered a classic now. It's crazy to think that this movie got panned when it came out and bombed at the box office, and now it has a fan base and people love it. So I'm really happy with that. I love this John Carpenter classic film. And The Thing is definitely one that, again, if you're getting into Carpenter movies, watch that one. That is an awesome one. So coming in at number 1, without a doubt, my favorite Carpenter film, and I said it in the beginning of the video, you'll probably know what it is already. That is John Carpenter's Halloween. So this is, again, the film that made me fall in love with movies. It made me fall in love with horror movies, made me fall in love with John Carpenter. And, you know, I've talked about this movie so many times, so I really don't need to talk about it too much. But some of the things that really stand out in this movie, obviously the direction, obviously the atmosphere is great. But one of the other big things that stand out with it, besides the music, which I do love, is the writing. You have John Carpenter writing a lot of the suspense and kills and the horror movie elements in it. And then you have the writing by Deborah Hill. Rest in peace to Deborah Hill. I miss her. I love her. You know, Deborah Hill is a legend, in my opinion. She really knows how to write character. And the 3 main teenage girls, young women in the movie, she wrote all of them. She knows how to write dialogue. She knows how to write these characters where they interact with each other, and the chemistry is just perfect. And I really love the writing. So I give that to Carpenter. I give that to Deborah Hill. I give everybody behind this film, in front of the camera, all the credit that they deserve, because every person who was involved with this movie has made this movie the classic that it is today. And it's a very special movie for me. I will always love this movie. I cherish this movie. Again, this is a film that made me fall in love with movies. And Halloween is awesome. And if it wasn't for Halloween, maybe we wouldn't have Carpenter. I know he directed films before this, but I think Halloween is the film that really got people to notice John Carpenter. And, you know, that's why he's a legend, in my opinion. So Halloween, absolutely love it. That is my number 1 favorite Carpenter film. Always will be. And if you've never seen it, check that one out, guys. It is a must watch. Alright guys, so that is episode 3, and that is my favorite, top 10 favorite John Carpenter films, plus some honorable mentions. Obviously, watch all of these movies if you've never seen them, stream them if you want, or most importantly, buy them on physical media, because, you know, you gotta support physical media out there. I love physical media, I know a lot of y'all do, and if you're just getting into Carpenter films, say if you're just getting into horror movies, these are a lot of great ones to watch. You know, The Fog, Halloween, The Thing, so many others. Every one of these that I've mentioned, plus some more. Just look up John Carpenter, check out his movies. He's got some great films out there, guys. So I hope you enjoyed episode 3. Stay tuned for episode 4, where that is going to be my first horror movie memories. So that'll be next Sunday, guys. Episode 4, look out for that. Everybody have a great week. And as always, you guys are awesome. You guys rock. In with the positive, out with the negative. Go eat some Skittles. So much love to you all. And remember to always be yourself, because you are amazing and you are beautiful and you're awesome. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Go watch some Carpenter movies and have a great week coming up. All right, guys.